It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha, it's Feedback Friday. Okay, so a lot happened this week. And, based on the name of the video, it's a nice thing about YouTube is you know what it's going to be about before you even click, right? The timing is interesting just because of my Steam Deck video and the hesitations I had about it. Now, it did get a little bit dislike bombed, a little bit, but overall, it was a good experience. People who disagreed on the merits. They didn't get personal. There was a lot of talk about the Proton anti-cheating software. I have very strong opinions about software like that and how it works, so I didn't get into it because it would have been a bit of a rant. But fine for people to bring that up. There was some It's funny because people I know who are very smart and know these things, some people were full on board. The APU is going to be fine. Other people, kind of quietly agreed with me that yes, there are some warning signs. So what it really comes down to is we don't know. We're all speculating. We're all dealing with very incomplete information and a lot of speculation, which is what happens when something is in pre-order and nobody's ever gotten their hands on it, right? Now, I use that very respectful, like I don't have anybody think I said disrespect there. A very respectful debate. Where reasonable people can disagree against the backdrop of this Activision news. Here we go. If you like this sort of stuff, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Now, the patrons this week are getting a video about stuff I don't really feel comfortable talking about in public because it's more subjective, personal experiences. And precisely because it is subjective, I don't want to paint too wide a brush in public. I'll leave that there. I feel more comfortable talking about certain things with a more restrictive audience, that something can't be snipped and isolated from the rest of the video and somebody can make a lot of hay over something that was, warped, twisted. That happens to me a lot as is. And before I get into the Activision stuff, my compassion with all my heart goes out to the good people who work at Activision, who either were women that was subjected to this systemic top-down, I believe to be a straight-up discriminatory workplace, but also the guys who work there who didn't like it either, but who were frightened into silence. They didn't feel like they could do anything. All they do is lose their jobs as well. And unfortunately, because of the nature of these complaints, because it's a suit against the company, not individuals, a lot of people are gonna get lumped in. And I want to be extremely clear that I do believe that the culture at Activision Blizzard, it was systemic. It did come from the top. It was all pervasive. It was not a few bad apples. It was not, okay, you wipe out half your upper management, problem solved. Activision Blizzard has serious culture problems that aren't as easy to fix as what was going on at Ubisoft. You guys may remember when even when the Riot Games thing happened, but certainly when the Ubisoft thing happened, I was like, wait. This is just their time in the barrel. Wait. And it was Activision. Like, there's more to come. It was Activision that was top of mind for me because I've been treated like shit by someone at every large video game publisher in existence. But Activision was different. EA just treated everybody like shit. EA was notorious. They treated male games journalists and, employees just as badly as they treated women. It was so bad and obvious it was a joke among my colleagues. We'd get treated badly, and then our male bosses, our male superiors would go in there and get treated even shittier at EA. EA is just... Ubisoft has always been chaos. And you notice I chuckle, and I shouldn't, because some people got very badly hurt because of the disorganization and the perception that things are just constantly on fire at that company. I know some people who had to leave because they were whistleblowers that weren't listened to. But I do believe it was and is easier to fix what was wrong, and probably is still to an extent wrong at UB, than it is at Activision. Women, like when we talk amongst ourselves in the industry, women want to work at Ubisoft. Women want to work at BioWare. Women warn each other off Activision. My experiences at Activision, though clearly, I was just a journalist being in there and treated like a guest. Like a guest because of my gender, not an employee who, yikes. But you still felt it, and it was still unique. The frat boy culture was, and I assume is, very real at that company. And I want to make a massive caveat to that, okay? The Toys for Bob guys, the Skylanders team, were never anything but gracious. Of course, I spent a lot of time with the Skylanders teams because Activision, without exception, would always try to just pawn me off on the all ages games. I had to fight for access to things like Call of Duty or Destiny. My Destiny experience was uniquely horrendous. I actually had to fight with my editors because Destiny was the big up and coming thing, right? And I was assigned to go cover Destiny. And I showed up, first appointment of the morning, ready to go. There was no demo station for me. And I was like, can I get it on the next session? No, we're fully booked. It's like, well, I had an appointment. Well, you can just watch over someone's shoulder, right? You don't need to play it. And I said, I'm not going to report on a game demo I have not played. And I remember the look on people's faces with an "isn't that cute? She's trying to be a real journalist." And these were male and female marketing people. That's why I'm saying it's pervasive. It culture's this sick. Women do it to other women as well. But they're like, we can give you a t-shirt. And I said, a t-shirt is not a hands-on demo. I was promised a hands-on demo. So what I ended up writing on, because my editor said, it's Destiny. We need some Destiny coverage. And I wrote about my experience of not being able to get on the Destiny demo and them thinking me watching over some guy's shoulder because every guy in the room got a spot, And then, of course, they sent a guy from the website the next day as a drop-in And he got through. It was just so blatant. And this is when people start going, but. That wasn't an isolated incident, okay? Every fucking year, I had to push for access to anything that was not Skylanders. And more like every year it was a problem, and I'd say, look, I want these games. I want Call of Duty. I forget some of the others. But, you know, my poor history with Activision goes back a ways, because the first article that I was really badly online harassed regarding, the Halo 3 review was rough, but it was baby stuff compared to what I got when I wrote an article critical of World of Warcraft. And this was, I don't remember if it was Blizzard Activision at the time, or I don't remember. It's kind of a haze. But you know, this was at the time where it wasn't vanilla WoW anymore. They'd had a couple of expansions. And I've met some of the former vanilla WoW guys. They're all, for the record, very lovely. Those particular vanilla WoW dudes have been super respectful and supportive. But there'd been a few expansions, and Age of Conan and the Warcraft MMO. You remember that one? Were in the space, and even though they were not WoW, they had made some interesting innovations that WoW had not bothered to keep with what was, you know, innovative in the MMO space at the time. And I remember writing an article being like, why do we still not have a Noom Zone? Why do we still not have any anti-gank software? Like, what's going on? They're so big that they're not listening to people. 10 million players can be wrong. You know, they're not innovating. They're smelling their own farts. Paraphrasing, of course. Oh my God. The hate. And it was, I remember reading the comments on, yes, things like N4G and stuff like that. I think it was that. It was one of those type things. But, you know, I got to see the culture of this company when all this scathing response came in. She's a girl. What does she know? She's probably barely even played the game, this, that, the net. But okay, she makes some valid points. And it was this culture of vicious personal attacks while still being unable to repudiate my core points. And my thought is, if you can't repudiate my core points, why the fucking anger? Because of the frat boy culture that Blizzard Activision cultivates. Now, it's worse on the Call of Duty side. I think nobody is surprised at that. I was always very surprised by the girls are guests attitude surrounding World of Warcraft as it went on. A lot of women play World of Warcraft. Mileage varies based on the guild you're in, right? It's possible to have a really great experience playing WoW as long as you're with the right people. The issue is that Blizzard took no steps to make it a more standardized, enjoyable experience where you can cut down on the ganking. You can cut down on the noob abuse, you know, like you can do this stuff, but they just didn't bother because they don't have to. And the other thing that I actually went and I read the actual paperwork of the lawsuit. And it's actually worse than what the reporting makes it sound like. The particular thing, trigger warning suicide, the woman who died by suicide on or after a business trip, the articles around the lawsuit are vague as to what this male business colleague brought on the work trip that was of a sexual nature. The lawsuit details it. The dude brought a butt plug and lube on a business trip, and for some odd reason, his female coworker knew about that somehow. In no universe is that even remotely okay. What you bring for your private time is your business. Your colleagues shouldn't be privy to that. Unless they're partaking in it with you. And even then, be careful with your shit where you eat. But when it says, sexual materials or something like that could be anything from a dirty magazine, hentai on their phone. We don't know, right? When it's right there, it's like, okay, clearly over the line. But all that sensational stuff is actually burying the lead about what this lawsuit is about. And it is about discriminatory employment across the board, including massive gulfs in pay for significantly similar work. Denials of promotion, and retaliation against complaints. And it's that retaliation against complaints that I have some experience about, which is why I told the story about the article I wrote, because I was basically told through back channels, don't even bother to apply for media at BlizzCon. You're blackballed. It's like, that was 5 years ago. Why? Yeah, but you criticize them. They don't forget. Everybody knew. And this is why a lot of these, even now, people are softballing in the reporting. Because it's pretty well known Activision Blizzard retaliates against critics. Internally, externally, I'm living proof. And internally. Now, again, I'm glad that I've talked about this on Twitter and other places, and people are, I'm sorry that happened to you, instead of prove it. That's a major difference than if this had been talked about 5-10 years ago, right? That's strides, because, can you prove this stuff? Well, no, all the content's gone, the websites have folded, all that stuff. It's probably somewhere on a Wayback Machine somewhere, but I'd really have to dig for it. And the back channel stuff, clearly there's no paper trail on that. It was in-person conversations, right? We shouldn't live in a world where we have to have a tape recorder running 24/7 to be believed. And the fact that I haven't spoken about this before now, but it was saying, wait, just wait. Hopefully that gives me some element of credibility for people who are still skeptical. But it was that ongoing feeling of you're a guest that was part of the corporate culture at Activision, and unlike EA, who is hilariously shitty to everyone, it over the years, it became less and less subtle. That it was not based on me as a person because I knew my stuff. It was a sort of resentment based on gender, And I when I sat, because they kept me waiting forever, because I'm like, no, I want Black Ops. No, I want Black Ops. Yes, I did Skylanders. That's nice. I specifically asked you about Black Ops. Can you please show me Black Ops? And so I'd sit there, and I remember sitting there because I remember the posters on the wall for the various games. And it's funny, I don't remember the names of the games, but I remember the poster design because they were all very similar. But then I also remember the food table laid out, the posters were here and it was there. And I remember just sitting there watching dudes in suits, assumedly upper management, just yell and scream and curse at their phone and send, the marketing people, which were the only women in the whole place, right? Marketer PR people, just scurrying. And the fact that that was remarkable, the fact that that stayed with me was telling, because in TV, there's a ton of yelling. In games, there usually isn't. And certainly not of that brazen sort when, it's an area where the press is reasonably expected to be, I can see you doing that, sir. And it's like, all right, you file that away. Because in and of itself, it was some sort of leak and somebody was pissed off about a leak and was cursing and swearing, which I guess, kind of understandable, but do it behind closed doors where the media's not. And, and big deal, they're pissed about, I wasn't there to run gossip. I wasn't there to run dirt. I was there to tell people whether, in my opinion, a game looked worth their money. I was there to ask questions like, since this is Call of Duty Black Ops 2, why is it just open, massive gunplay with helicopters in broad daylight? Where's the Black Ops? A funny experience I had with a sledgehammer guy was, I asked, I came up with a cheeky start because it was for video, and it's like, what's soap going to clean up in this game? And he had this moment where all the swagger went away. Activision dudes were good because they wore suits. So they kind of respected, they came to work wearing suits. I liked that. But they definitely had a swagger. And all the swagger just sort of melted at that moment. And of course, that was the game they killed off soap, right? I didn't know. Nobody knew. But it was that moment. I'm like, what? That was the great thing about in-person interviews is you got moments like that. And later on, you're like, oh, right? So they weren't all bad moments that I did get access eventually. It was just way harder. And the problem with it being so hard, you're like, so what? Big deal, right? Because more and more, it didn't make sense for the website to send me to Activision. They'd send some random, more junior dude who knew less, who wasn't as good at a media scrum, who wasn't as good at asking questions, who wasn't as good at analysis, because he'd get in. And so my opportunities got more and more and more reduced because of Activision's poor behavior. Activision has some really big games, obviously, right? That Destiny thing was just, it sucked because I got what my editor was saying. It's Destiny. It's search. People want to read about Destiny. But I told him, I'm not going to cover a game where I was not playing the game. I was watching the game over someone's shoulder. I'm not going to report secondhand. I don't know how it feels. It could play like clunky shit. For all I know. All I know is the bits I saw look like rip-off Quarry and Mass Effect designs. Right? That's all I could say. It's not the same as playing it. You don't watch games, you play games. But there was so much pressure. And so there's so much pressure that not only were women being back of the line within the company, women who interacted with the company were getting back of the line in the press just because, you can understand it, right? From an editor's perspective, if buddy 2 years on the job dude can get in and one of your best writers who happens to be a woman can't, who are you going to send? It's law of the jungle, right? But what the lawsuit says from the state of California, and kudos to the people who came forward for this from Activision going through these sorts of channels. This is not something that's going to be fought in the press. This is something that's going to be fought in the courts, which means there is a standard of evidence. Fucking thank you. The other thing is these suits generally aren't brought forward unless they have very compelling evidence. And what the Department of Fair Employment and Housing for California said, after more than 2 years of investigation, 2 years, DFEH, Department of Fair Employment and Housing, issued a cause finding on June 24th, 2021. In the course of the DFEH's investigation, DFEH found evidence that why am I not showing you guys this? I can show you guys this. What am I doing? Here we go. Okay. So, here we go. So, DFEH found evidence that defendants discriminated against female employees in terms and conditions of employment, including compensation, assignment, promotion, termination, constructive discharge, and retaliation. DFEH's investigation also found that female employees were subject to sexual harassment. The sexual harassment part is what's making all the headlines, but it's not the guts of the complaint, right? And I think that's very important. DFEH's investigation found that defendants failed to take all reasonable steps to prevent unlawful discrimination, harassment, or retaliation. Lastly, DFEH's investigation further found that defendants had committee violations of Labor Code Section 1197.5 in paying female employees less than their male counterparts for substantially similar work. These claims are alleged and or reasonably related to and like the claims originally alleged in the director's complaints. DFEH attempted to resolve this matter without litigation. Prior to filing this civil action, the DFEH required all parties to participate in mandatory dispute resolution in the department's internal dispute resolution division free of charge to the parties in an effort to resolve the dispute without litigation. Specifically, DFEH invited defendants to participate in a mediation session with the department's internal dispute resolution division on July 1st, 2nd, and 15th, 2021, but the parties were unable to resolve the administrative complaints. That's very important. That's legalese to, look, we tried to do this quiet. Now we're doing it loud. So, Activision, Blizzard, they were rushed. How dare they bring in this poor woman who died? It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. They knew this was coming. They've done cards on the table. This is theater. Activision Blizzard knows what they got. They think they can fight this. Now, maybe they're right. Okay? We'll see. But the fact that this has all been, this is all coming. They knew this was coming, and they acted all outraged, and they claimed that 2 years is a rushed investigation. Let me tell you, the other stuff that ends up in the press, the stuff I've done on, Chris Avallone and, even the Ubisoft thing. And the Ubisoft thing was a lengthy investigation by games journalism standards. It wasn't 2 years. 2 years is a long time. That ain't rushed. Now, okay, some cases go much longer in law, but you can hardly call 2 years and 3 attempts at mediation rushed, right? They had a month here. And this is a class complaint. It's a group or class complaint. So there's more than one complainant here. This is not small. And they may be trying to thread the needle of the idiosyncrasies of class complaints and whatever. I'm not a lawyer. I just know I've been told this, but there's a lot. This is the meatiest thing we have so far, and no matter what happens in court, they will probably quietly settle now after this because of the negative PR. But I know what I experienced, and I know how uniquely, It was just, you are a guest, know your place. And that is very difficult to quantify in a lot of cases, but it is still very real. And that retaliatory element is absolutely real. The number of times over the years I've been told, wow, you went after Blizzard. You're very brave, but also very stupid. They never forget. Probably guilty on both counts. I don't know. Sometimes I do the right thing instead of the smart thing, and I know that. But we're not gonna overcome this stuff if we keep just picking individual fall guys with sensational sexual harassment complaints. You know, we're not going to solve this problem just getting, game companies to fire guys like Chris Avellone. We really got to look at these systems that are perpetuating this stuff and stop blaming the fan base for the cultures that the publishers create, have control of, and can influence and choose not to. That's not what a game company lets its players get away with. Is not the fault of the players. That's the fault of the company. And as long as we continue to blame gamers and individual developers for the top-down cultural problems that are rampant in these companies, these things are going to keep happening. There's going to be a bit of calm now because pretty much every major publisher's been cycled through, unless there's another thing coming that isn't resolved, which is possible. EA may not be done. I'm just not privy to, you always hear shit coming out of EA. But like I said, EA is awful to everyone. EA also runs studios that operate out of states like Texas and Florida, and it's harder to sue when you're in those states because they're more Republican than in a state like California, which has its Republican pockets, but it's California, right? We got to stop blaming gamers. And we got to stop blaming individual developers. And we got to start looking at the cultures surrounding this stuff that are not only frat boy cultures, but also perpetuate and normalize a particular kind of acceptable woman who doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about, and that makes her less dangerous, right? Somebody who is just dead wrong about everything, like, oh, she has something important to say. Somebody like me gets blackballed. Precisely because I made valid points. That they couldn't just go, oh, she has something important to say and not worry about it because everybody knows it's nonsense. This will be a work in progress. There's my phone. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.